So, good morning. Do you remember as a child playing that game called Clue, where they had the mysteries and you had to figure out who it was that murdered somebody? That was a lot of fun. I wanted to invite you to play a better game. Kind of the same idea, though. Barbara Brown Taylor once wrote something that has always stuck with me. She said, "We are to be detectives of the divine. Look for clues of God everywhere we look." That always challenges me. So I want to invite you, not for a whole week, maybe that's too much to ask for, but maybe just take one day this week, say, okay, today I'm going to be a detective of the divine. I'm going to look for clues of God's presence. Yeah, I don't remember many sermons, probably just like you, but I do remember a sermon, and I went back in my files and found it was preached in 2008. It's called On Finding a Penny. And what prompted that was when I was in a Walmart parking lot. That might have been the last time I was there, by the way. Uh, Walking from the car to into the store, just like you've done many times, there was a penny on the parking lot. And what did I do? I just kept on walking. After all, it was just a penny. And I thought about that week, and I preached a sermon on finding a penny. And one of the things I did, I put several dimes out in the sanctuary. In the sermon, I asked, had anybody seen one of those dimes? Nobody had, even though there were several placed around. How interesting that we become blind to so many little gifts that are right in our path. And so I want to invite you to consider that. Walmart, that's one thing. But it's another thing when we miss the gifts that God puts in our lives. And so when I preached that sermon that week, what struck me so much is that, okay, at the start of the week, I said, okay, I'm going to give that a shot. I'm going to really, truly emphasize looking for God's presence. And what amazed me was every time I turned around, I saw something that reminded me of God. And I was thinking, this week is probably no different than any other week, so what's different? What's different is that I was thinking about that and I was putting that on my radar to really be present to all the little gifts. And every day it was like God was just bombarding me with presence. So the story is, I wonder how much I miss sometimes just because it's only a penny. It's only the things that we take for granted, if you will. The tragedy is we have eyes to see, and yet we can still be so blind to God all around us. I grew up with that idea that you had to see it to believe it. But Jesus comes along and says, no, you have to believe it in order to see it. So I wonder, how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as a divine gift that God has given you? And how do you see your world, especially this world we're in these days? Have you become blind to all the little gifts that God has given you every single day? I believe God is just anywhere. But what's a penny if it's only a penny to you? What is it if all the things that God has put in your life is just things that you take for granted? So to be a detective of the divine, I guarantee you, if you really put that on your radar just for one day, I bet you will be amazed at how many evidences of God there are. I want to read in closing some lines by this same Barbara Brown Taylor. Think about this, with everything going on in the pandemic world, with so many distractions, so much noise, wildfires, hurricanes, political season, just noise everywhere. Let me ask you, do you sense God's presence in your life? If your manna has to drop straight out of heaven looking like a perfect loaf of butter-crusted bread, then chances are you're going to go hungry a lot. When you do not get the miracle you are praying for, you're going to think that God is ignoring you or punishing you. Worse yet, that God is not there. You're going to start comparing yourself to other people and wondering why they seem to have more to eat than you do. And you may start complaining to heaven about that. Meanwhile, you're going to miss a lot of other things God is doing for you because they are hidden there in the ordinary. If, on the other hand, you are willing to look at everything that comes to you as coming to you from God, then there will be no end to the manna in your life. A can of beans will be manna. Nothing will be too ordinary to remind you of God. I love that line. A can of beans will be manna. Nothing will be too ordinary to remind you of God. So this week, there's your challenge. Play the game Clue. Look for the mystery that is all around us. Be a detective of the divine. Let me know how that goes for you. Because when I did it that week in 2008, everything changed for me. And I saw God, in fact, is everywhere. Thanks be to God.